Ooh, cup of tea. Cup of tea. What have you got?
I got a cup of coffee.
Tea and cup of Joe for Joe.
That's apt, isn't it? If you think about it, I'm hyped off my balls over here on this caffeinated beverage.
Should we go?
It went down the wrong way.
Oh dear.
Welcome to episode 2 of Pushing Buttons. Hello, Mark. That is the sounds of buttons.
The sounds of buttons.
We like games. What's been going on in the world, Mark?
What's been going on in the world? Let's not go there.
Oh, okay, fair enough. How are you? You okay?
I'm all right. I'm good. Doing well. Keeping safe. How about you up there in the north?
I'm staying alert, Mark. That's all a little boy like myself can do, isn't it? Stay as alert as possible. Keep my eyes open. Look out for anything.
We're going to start this week off with the news.
News.
That's the jingle.
So many explosions with the news. What's the news?
Well, why don't you start off with the very sad news about Cyberpunk?
Yeah, Cyberpunk.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I think everyone is crying salty tears. Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red have announced that it's being delayed from September to November the 19th, or was it 17th? It's one of those two dates. Let's split the difference and call it the 18th. No, it's definitely the 17th. I think it's the 19th. Yeah, and
is that clear? Is that clear enough for everyone?
Listen, I should get the facts in front of me. Basically, CD Projekt Red have come out saying that they just want the game to be as good as it possibly can be, which I think is totally fair to say. I think it's fair to say.
Approach. I want a complete game on release. I don't want a slightly broken...
Oh, exactly, and a 20 gigabyte patch just before you can even play it. Yeah, I think it's the right decision. And there was no mention of COVID-19 in there whatsoever. It's not for those reasons. It's purely because they want to make the game as good as possible. As big a game as they claim to be making, there's got to be a lot of bugs in there. More bugs than my Animal Crossing museum. If you catch my drift.
You've done well there.
Thanks, man.
Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster apparently coming this fall. It's a rumor, and we're going to splash that rumor around a little bit more for you.
Yeah.
Basically, by just saying that, that's kind of all I have.
Yeah, we're putting our ears to the ground and keeping our fingers on the pulse, and people are saying that they're going to remaster the Mass Effect trilogy. However, it was not even referred to. Mass Effect wasn't referred to in the slightest in last night's. We're recording this on Friday, and last night it was the EA Play Live event went out. Obviously, there's no E3 this year, so everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And there was no mention of Mass Effect in the slightest, was there, Mark?
No, I was watching some pre-show vibes on other YouTube channels, and they were saying that EA in the past have just not been big on remastering. They're not interested. But we're getting Command & Conquer, and now this rumour about Mass Effect, but they didn't mention it. So we're just going on rumours. So hopefully, I loved the original trilogy. Andromeda was trash and sort of killed the series off. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I'd play it again. I love it.
I would like to think that if they released the Mass Effect trilogy, people would remember just what made that series so special.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Garrus, who is
still tinkering those drives, I believe. Well, you mentioned EA Play Live, so should we do that? Should we quickly go through that now?
Yeah, let's have a quick kind of recap of exactly went down. I almost didn't stay up for it as it was starting at 12 bang on midnight here in the UK. I was texting you, wasn't I, saying, hey man, I don't think I'm going to make it. But I did. I managed to stay awake. And I don't want to say I was impressed, but I thought for EA, it was actually quite a good conference, as in the past, they have spent 20 minutes looking at FIFA and NHL, and, everyone's turning off at that point. But actually, they only dedicated about 2 minutes to the sports and all the sports balls, and the rest of it was really focused on what looks like quite a new outlook for EA, I think.
It was all very positive, wasn't it? I think it all felt upbeat, looking forward and that sort of thing. And I have to say, actually, the sports segment, I'm not particularly interested in NHL and basketball and all the balls.
Yeah.
But the segment they did do, that video sequence, was actually quite well done. I was kind of, into it. It was very intense and well put together. So
mixing two types of football with the English football and the silly American football. It was, I agree. It was well done. Some nice VO and some footy fans on show.
Crossplay. Lots of crossplay. Everything we're doing from now on is crossplay, and I'm all for that. That was
the main takeaway for me, was that really, unlike any other developer out there, they really are pushing crossplay across all of their upcoming multiplayer games, really like no one else, which is so good to see, and also incredibly unlike EA as a thing to do, because they're famously quite money-grabbing and harsh. I mean, they had the huge sort of scandal about the microtransactions in Battlefront 2 and that kind of thing, and people really weren't looking at them too fondly. But they seem to be making up for that with really just a great thing that is making everyone be able to play against each other, no matter what console you've got.
Yep. Including Star Wars Squadrons, which was the main, I think we can all agree, was probably the main event.
Oh, hugely. We're both Star Wars guys. You've been playing a lot of Elite Dangerous, haven't you? Which is a space combat game. So it's very much for you, this game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Elite Dangerous is more of a sim. There's combat in it, but you can choose to do space trucking and also. That's all right, mate. You can choose to do space trucking and other things. But I bought. I think it was back in 2014 when I heard about Elite Dangerous release. I was like, right, getting that. Bought a HOTAS, which is hands-on throttle and stick, if we didn't know.
Ooh!
And I've only used it for that game. I've not had anything else to use it for. So I'm really looking forward.
You haven't tried it out on CSGO or anything like that?
Funnily enough, no. But maybe I'll try a Dark Souls run through with it or something.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm looking forward to something that's a little bit more in depth in the combat sim arena, and being able to use my HOTAS. It's going to be great. Can't wait. Crossplay. I mean, the game looks great. What do we say about that trailer?
Just the thought of putting a squad together and going out there and kicking some space butt. I'm frothing at the mouth just thinking about it. As a fan of many Star Wars properties, it had numerous kind of little teases of things that for the fanboys. For example, they showed Hera Syndulla, who is a character from Star Wars Rebels, which is one of their recent animated shows, and she seems like she's going to be really heading up the task force in terms of contact with the pilots out there. So that was a really nice little nod for all us Star Wars nerds out there. And they seem to have just really taken every element of this game really seriously. And like you said, it's not like in Battlefront where really the space combat, not an afterthought, but it isn't the main focus of that game.
It was more arcadey, wasn't it? Third person, fly your ship into the capital ship and then jump out, that sort of thing. What I really enjoyed was one of the talking points was we wanted to add all the elements of knowing to put your shields, power your shields towards the rear.
I was just going to say this.
And all that kind of stuff. I mean, I dig that so hard. That's great. That kind of detail, that attention to detail. And also focus on, I guess you could call it, if you're thinking about COD, it'd be loadouts. But in this case, it's your different ships. And you're going to go interceptor and you're going fighter against fighter. You're picking the bomber. You're picking a sort of support class to help your other fighters and disrupt. It's just great. So much detail.
And balancing your squadron and thinking, okay, we're going to do 3 A-wings and we're going to 2 bombers and you've got the fast and the slow. Just thinking about how you're going to put that squadron together. You're right. It's just tingles, getting excited over here. The one thing that I absolutely loved in that whole bit, I don't know why, but I was absolutely obsessed with this guy that who's clearly like the mechanic or like vehicle engineer for the Empire, and he's just this dude, and he's just like, I can fix up whatever you want. I can put on some parts on your TIE fighter, and just like this guy this is the most chill guy who's ended up being like this mechanic for the Empire. I was absolutely obsessed with this character. I want to know more about him.
Well, there's a story mode as well, so maybe we'll learn more about it.
Well, we can only hope. But yeah, that looks great. There was a lot of stuff about kind of smaller indie titles, which look quirky and fun.
And then they did the classic, but just wait, we got one more thing, but everybody does. Skate 4.
Yes, the internet has willed it into existence.
Now, I don't know whether this is a one more thing worthy reveal or not. I wasn't super up for it. Skate was great, but also there's the Tony Hawk's remaster in the works, 1 and 2.
I was always more of a Tony Hawk's guy than, I tried Skate, but it wasn't my cup of tea. I was always more of a THPS man myself.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like most people are just going to gravitate towards Tony Hawk.
Yeah, it's hard because in a lot of ways I feel like they should have started the conference with that. But then I suppose if you say that, then how are they going to end it? Because they
Squadrons would have been fine. That would have been hype.
I guess so.
Leave it there.
Yeah, I just think ending a showcase with just an announcement that has zero trailer game, not even any concept art, just two old blokes, but just being like, "We're back, baby. We're skaters, man." And it was just all a little bit forced.
It's all down to you guys. You willed it back.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got nothing to show. It's very early, but we're really excited.
We actually just got the call from EA saying we're putting you on camera now.
I'm in my pajamas. I was not prepared for this, but thank you so much.
Yeah, it all had that kind of feel to it. But hey, a lot of people are going to be very, very happy, and all those internet trolls who just filled comment sections with the word Skate 4 can now be happy
Sleep
boys
easy.
And girls. Sleep easy, yeah. So that's a bit of fun. What else have we got in the news?
Yeah, the other thing we had this week was Pokemon.
It was a Pokemon Direct.
That's it, Direct. So it was
Yeah.
another Nintendo Direct, and it was a specific Pokemon one, and it lasted about 5 minutes and was a complete waste of time, in my opinion. They could have just chucked this in their big Nintendo E3 vibe that they're doing in a couple of weeks' time, whenever it is.
But wait, if you have trouble getting your kids to brush their teeth at night, Mark, you're going to want to get Pokemon Smile on your smartphone. That's all I'm saying.
Don't have any kids, but
it looked fun. If you had some wee bairns to get them brushing their teeth more, that's a thing that exists in the world now.
yeah, I suppose at the end they said, and next week we're going to have a big Pokemon reveal, whatever that means. But the big, before we get onto the
why did they split? Why are they splitting it into two? Is what I want to know.
I know, it was just a waste. It was genuinely a waste. The other thing was a mobile game that's also going to be on Switch where you swirl your finger around and do something silly. Looked really boring. And then the big one was Pokemon Snap, which we were underwhelmed by. However, I did watch a clip of Ross O'Donovan, or Rubber Ninja, as he's more commonly known, of Game Grumps fame and animation fame on YouTube. There was a reaction of him, and he went ballistic. He was so happy. He woke his girlfriend up screaming. So, if there are people that are that into it, he seemed so happy to see Pokemon Snap back. Then, fair play, someone out. It's there for some people.
It's a weird one, really, because surely that's just purely nostalgia based. Because even as an 8 or 9 year old boy, I as a big Pokemon fan, even I wasn't interested in Pokemon Snap back then on the N64 because it was just taking pictures of Pokemon. And for me, I guess it appeals to the whole collecting thing that is huge. Got to catch them all, got to take a pic of them all. I get it, but it will be successful because of the nostalgia thing, like I said. But it's a funny one, isn't it?
I just find it weird that they dedicated an entire direct that lasted about 5 minutes for these three
fairly niche titles.
So that was that.
But people love Pokemon, man, and there are a huge amount of people that will lap up anything that is to do with those little pocket monsters. So there will be some people that were incredibly pleased with it. But, interested to see what this next big thing that they're teasing for this week coming is. Probably just another DLC for Sword and Shield. But or there was also some speculation that there might be some more remakes coming of all the Pokemon games.
Ranger, Pokemon Dungeon.
Yeah, all that stuff. I would love, and I would genuinely enjoy just like a new Pokemon Stadium, which is just all about battles and some like fun mini games. I know the thing is that really it's probably a bit redundant just because these days all battles within Pokemon's games are those 3D kind of experiences. But a hot, fresh take on the Pokemon Stadium idea. I mean, I just love the mini games. I love the Licky Tongue sushi game, stuff like that. It was all great. So
they could really expand on that and do a bigger version. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you.
But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see on that one.
So the PC Gaming Show 2020 also happened this week. Did you watch that, Ben?
No, I did not.
And I'll tell you what, you did yourself a favour because it was 2.5 hours bloody long.
Wow.
And it was full of trash. Okay, that's a bit harsh. It wasn't full of trash. The game, there were some games and stuff in there. I'm not going to go into it because it's far too long.
Okay.
But the presentation was awful. My gosh, were the presenters irritating. I don't even know where to start.
You don't do yourself any favours, you PC lot, do you? Just,
I don't get it. Like, who do they think they're talking to?
Yeah.
I really don't get it. Who is this for? The guy was chatting to some fake robot thing. Hey, I don't even know its name. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm looking forward to... And I was just like, this. Are we in the 90s?
I was going to say, that sounds like E3 2002 or something like that. That sounds trash.
They really need to adjust. Like, what? I mean, just infuriating. So, yeah, message to those lot. Sort it out. And also 2.5 hours or whatever it was, far too long. Make it an hour and then do an after show with some of the smaller stuff. Get all the big stuff and the final reveal within that hour and then say, and we're going to be doing a whole another hour of all this other stuff coming up. That'd be fine because a lot of people probably would stick around, especially if there's something that perhaps wasn't mentioned that they want to hear about.
Separate the wheat from the chaff, Mark.
Far too long. Absolutely.
Okay, well, enough. The less said about that, the better by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. Let's do something else. Let's move on. So normally, I say normally, this is episode 2. What we want to do is read out your emails at this point and kind of connect with you guys. But we didn't actually get episode 1 out as of this second we sat down recording. So, what's the email again, Bellum? Just letting them know.
The email address is pushingbuttons@gmail.com. Pushingbuttonspod. That's a lot of plosives there. At gmail.com. So yeah, please do email in with kind of comments, ideas, suggestions, feedback, or just general chit chat. And like Mark said, at this kind of early stage in the pod, we'll have a little bit of communication with you guys.
So we want to talk about your thoughts and feelings on the PS5 reveal event last week, and also the stuff we've mentioned today, including the PC Gaming Show, EA Live, and all that good stuff. But we also want to hear what we're going to talk about today, which is our top 10 games in no particular order. Send in your lists, people. We want to see all those different vibes and opinions coming out.
If you can't manage a 10, give me a sweet 5, or cut the difference, give me a 7.5. Do whatever you want. I just want to know your favourite games, people.
And that's what we're going to do today.
Having just asked for that, I'm just going to say to you now that the concept of, say, my favourite anything in life is something that I hate hugely, as it is very difficult to choose favourites in any form of life, whether that be films, food, whatever. I do not enjoy the process, but nonetheless, I've done it for you, Mark.
I agree. I think I've forgotten a load of games when putting this together. I think this is just a way of breaking down the stuff that comes to the forefront of your mind and kind of seeing what our tastes are.
Yeah, and also just it's good for a bit of chat, isn't it? A bit of discussion. Yeah, no, I'm glad I have done it, but it's just so hard to look back across. Well, for me, 30 years of playing games, very nearly 30 years, not quite.
Me too.
I mean, I could have been playing games in the womb for all I know. Yeah, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly what my favourites are without forgetting some big ones. But I think I've done a pretty decent job.
Same. I'm happy with the list, but I know I've forgotten something.
Right, all right, then I'll start things off. We said in no particular order, but this one for me just is my favourite game of all time.
Whoa, let's save it to the end.
Oh, sorry, mate.
If you've definitely got a favourite, save it to the end. Suspense, isn't it? Keep them listening.
That's true. All right, then. In which case, I'm going to pick a random place in my top 10, and I'm going to start things off with a game that I absolutely love, and it is BioShock: The First.
Okay.
I just absolutely love this style of game that involves sort of like, I suppose you'd call it RPG elements, but that involves skill acquisition. It involves collecting items and weapons and these kind of things. All of that kind of progression that you get within your character, so unlocking new abilities. I love that kind of stuff, and there's so many games that do that really well. For me, the thing that this does so well is the story and the setting. I'm quite a big fan of sort of Art Deco architecture and design anyway, but just the way that this game looks and how much they nailed that aesthetic is just so great. And I know this is a massively cliched thing that a lot of people say, but the environment almost becomes a character within itself.
This game really makes you feel like a BioShock.
and the way that this stunning architecture, and whenever you look out into the sea or through the window, just how gorgeous it all looks. And I played it recently, and I do think it still stands up. The way that contrasts with the horrific sort of personal abuse and the way that the characters that inhabit this world have ended up, the way that's jarred with this incredible look, just really, really works for me. And obviously, the story and the twists is just done really well. Also, it's got a few spooks in it, and I love a light bit of spooking. I don't want too much spooks, but this just nailed it for me.
It is in my honourable mentions list.
Oh, there you go.
I agree with everything you said. It was kind of the titular game of its time, wasn't it? Very genre defining. Yeah, agree with everything. Nothing to add. Great game.
Oh, thanks, man. The only gripe I have with it, which is also something which is true, I think, of BioShock 2, is that it just ends massively abruptly. Like, I don't know if it's because they didn't really want to do too many sort of the classic pre-rendered or outside of the game engine sort of cutscene situation, but I just seem to remember that you kill the final boss and then it just ends, and it's just weirdly abrupt. Yeah, maybe I didn't unlock the full ending I have watched it on YouTube though. Maybe it's just more that I just didn't want to leave that world, and I was just loving being in it so much. But yeah, I doubt there's anyone that is yet to play BioShock, but the kind of main spoiler in that game is still, I think, just one of the best executed twists, I think, in games I've ever played. So yeah, BioShock in my top 10.
What's up next?
Next up, maybe I'll go for something slightly less obvious. I'm going to say Star Wars Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight.
Dark Forces 2? Mate, I don't even know what this is.
Okay, so the original Dark Forces is sort of like a first-person shooter that came out mid-90s, maybe about 94 or something like that. Dark Forces 2 was a bit more expansive, and it was where the main character from Dark Forces 1, a certain Kyle Katarn, he starts to become a Jedi. And it was my first taste of wielding a lightsaber in a game. And for me, that was a huge moment. And it's all, I think it's just also it's a landmark in sort of my gaming history, in that me and my brother played it loads and we were obsessed with it, all the minutiae of the game. And one of the best things about it was it was in that pocket of time in the 90s where all of the cutscenes, instead of being in engine or being rendered or whatever, were live action filmed cutscenes. You remember how
really?
You remember in the early Command and Conquer games they had actors play. Yeah, so it was similar to that, but they were just full on cutscenes that they had filmed. And I think there's a compilation of them on YouTube, and they are terrible. But I still quote them so much.
What system
with
was
my
this
brother? It's PC.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've played it or heard of it. I'm gonna have to look at that.
It is great. It's hilarious, but it's great.
My first sort of lightsaber wielding experience was on the PlayStation 1, and it was called Jedi Power Battles, which is an excellent game. Yeah. Really great game. So no, not heard of that one. But it sounds great.
It's great.
Go look it up.
Another thing that was great about it was that all of the cheat codes were sort of references to other Star Wars things. So if you wanted to skip the level, you'd type in "There is no try," which is a great Yoda quote. It was just really, really, really fun game. Very silly, but a lot of nostalgia there for me.
Next up,
GoldenEye 64.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
First multiplayer memories, really. Me and my brother sat there on a sofa, me playing as Odd Job, slightly too small to shoot in the head. Was always good fun. It's just, it's a classic that anybody of our age who owned an N64 will have had GoldenEye. And it's just really a touchstone for, it really defined console-based first-person shooters, I think, because obviously before that you had the likes of Doom on the PC,
Perfect Dark,
and Perfect Dark was made by the same guys who made GoldenEye 64, but that came out after GoldenEye, and it's just a brilliant game, and the single player was really good, and you were encouraged to kind of speed run through the levels to unlock the cheat codes and that kind of thing. There was just quite a lot to it.
I have a lot of fond memories of the multiplayer. It's good. Always pick Odd Job.
Yeah, you had to
because he's short.
So that's a big one for me. GoldenEye 64. Next, this one I know you're not going to like it.
Oh, okay.
And this is probably controversial in a lot of people's eyes who are a fan of this series. But this is Metal Gear Solid 2. Sons of Liberty. Absolutely excellent game. Now, a lot of people, if they're talking about their favourite Metal Gear Solid, usually go for either 1 or 3, Snake Eater being 3. But no, I really love Metal Gear Solid 2. Part of the reason why it's controversial is because you, instead of playing as Solid Snake, you play as Raiden, this guy with blonde hair and way less masculine than Solid Snake. But I don't. Maybe it's just because I played the heck out of it over and over again. But again, it was one of those games that rewarded you for going back and playing over and over again because there was so much to unlock. And it's just another case of absolutely mad Kojima storylines that don't make a whole load of sense. But it was just the right amount. For example, you believe that it's the real world, but all of a sudden there's a character called Vamp who is a vampire. And then,
right.
It's that kind of thing. But I just absolutely love that game. I'm a huge fan of stealth games in general, and the Metal Gear Solid series is one of the best exponents of stealth gameplay. Metal Gear Solid 2 for the reasons I've just stated.
Fair enough. Metal Gear Solid, not for me, I'm afraid.
No.
Don't like any of them.
Could you explain yourself?
To be honest with you, I almost can't be bothered. But I assume that Metal Gear Solid seems to be it genuinely seems to be a Marmite game. Series, rather. There's people that love it. There's people that dislike it, like myself. Gameplay-wise, I always find them very clunky. There's too many cutscenes. The cutscenes are far too long. The story makes no sense.
Yeah.
What else? Crappy AI, especially in the early games.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on. I don't buy this Hideo Kojima is a genius stuff. I think he's an artist in the sense that he has, mad ideas and wants to bring stuff together, but he should be a filmmaker, not a video game developer, in my opinion. I
understand that.
I don't buy into any of it at all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to be wearing kind of like a cynical hat, I'd probably agree with everything you just said. But I think I've got glossy eyes and just find the charm in all of that stuff that you just mentioned, and the madness and the clunky stuff, like things like the AI in the game. You smack in on a wall really, really hard to like get their attention, and then just go, "What was that?
What was that noise?"
Yeah, it's like. It's just all very charming and weird and fun. But I think just in stealth games in general, like Hitman and Splinter Cell, there's just so much joy in replaying them and finding different ways you can get from A to B that I just find really, really satisfying. And I think second to that is all of the story stuff and all the madness, but I just loved playing those games.
Sure.
So that's in there for me, MGS2.
Yep.
Next one, Resident Evil 4.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes. What a game.
Love the Resident Evil series a lot. Had 1, 2, and 3 on the PS1. Great games, but do not survive the sands of time. If you go back and play them now, the originals, that is, because of the tank controls. Absolutely horrendous. Just basically unplayable. They have gone...
It adds to the suspense, you have to admit.
Yeah, okay.
The gameplay is kind of woven into the way the suspense is built in the game and your interactions with everything, especially in the early ones. I mean, 4, they probably could have moved on by that point.
Yeah. No, I definitely take your point, but I would probably argue that was not their intention. They just weren't very good at designing controls. As in, I don't think they did it for suspense, but it does add to the suspense, so I agree with you.
Yeah.
But the kind of step up in pace and sort of action that Resident Evil 4 had it just really, really appealed to me. I love the world and the setting, and it feeling more like that had that weird community vibe, the village, or however you want to call it.
It was very arcadey and self-aware, wasn't it? Which is what I liked.
It definitely was. But the thing I liked is that the enemies that you were killing weren't just a zombie. It didn't feel like you were just killing hordes of zombies. You felt like you were killing people who existed in this world and this weird community that is. I mean, was it set in Spain?
Yeah, I think
South
it was.
America? Was it in Spain? Also, I think I know what you're going to say. Best version of it.
I didn't put this on my list because of this. I didn't want to have to clarify this in my list.
Okay. Well, okay. So, best version of the game is on the Nintendo Wii.
Yes.
It's as simple as just aiming at stuff is incredibly satisfying. And really, the only shooter game on the Wii that I just think absolutely nailed it.
Agree. Yeah.
It was just really satisfying.
But that's the only reason it didn't make it on my list, because I didn't want to have to write, Resident Evil 4, Wii version.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's a weird clarification to have to make. So it didn't make it for me.
It is, but I would have allowed it. I actually owned it on both the GameCube and Wii because I loved it on the GameCube so much that I thought I want to replay this, but with the motion controls. And I was not disappointed. Excellent game. Love Leon Kennedy. Hate the girl in it. Can't remember her name.
Oh, right, yeah.
The president's daughter. Just the worst. But yeah, really, really awesome game. I really, actually, side note, absolutely loved all of the modifications you could make to your weapons in that game.
Yep.
It was just a really well-executed system.
Agree. Great game overall.
Okay, next up. A very recent entry, but I'm going to say Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. It is in my top 10 of all time.
Do you want to sneak into my top 10 for a second?
I'll take a little stroll over to your top 10 for just a moment, Mark, if that's okay.
Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Continue.
Ugh.
I knew we'd have a crossover somewhere.
Yeah, of course we would. So, yeah, so this was the first game I had. So I got Nintendo Switch on launch day. I was that keen, and obviously came with Legend of Zelda. Or did it? Did it come with it? I feel like it did.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember that being a pack, but could have been.
Yeah, no, or at least I got that game. Yeah, it definitely came out with it. And I can't really think of a game that I have just had that level of obsession with that I did with that game. I don't know what it was about it. The sense of that sense of freedom that I have never experienced in a game, that you could, they stressed it so much. If you see that hill, you can climb up that hill. You see over there, you can go there. It was just that mass. I mean, I'm a huge fan of open world games and those sorts of, sandbox RPG games anyway.
It was a lesson to every single open world game on how to do open world sandbox.
Yeah. And I think every open world game from now on will take note from it. I don't know if you've seen any footage from Ghosts of Tsushima, which is a new game coming out for PS4.
I have not.
It's a sort of samurai combat game, but it's open world, and a lot of the traversal and you're riding a horse, and also there's a lot of kind of, I think you get direction from the wind in the game. I think that's how you kind of get told where your like next point of interest is.
Okay.
So there's a lot of cues from the look of it from Breath of the Wild. I just think they just nailed it so well, and I still have some criticism for it. I think the world was a little bit underpopulated. There were huge, vast, empty moments, and also I wasn't a massive fan of the new dungeon/temple, the way they executed that with the mythical beasts. Were they called?
Oh yeah, the four mythical beasts.
Yeah, I'm just a sucker for the elemental temples that you get.
Elemental temple.
It's just
I didn't mind the changes. It felt like its own game, and I appreciated it for what it was.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that's something I just love about Zelda. That's something an itch that I want scratched. Yeah, I can't really, apart from those two things, I can't really fault it. It was nice to have some voice acting as well for the first time in a Zelda game.
I recommend it in Japanese if you really want your heartstrings tugged.
Oh.
Yeah,
I've not done that.
I remember seeing you playing it and seeing footage of it, etc., in English. And I feel it's not that the voice acting is flat out better. It's not that the English voice actors did a bad job.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of the way it's translated, especially when you're reading the subtitles, and the emotion in it, for me, hits a little bit more in the original Japanese.
Okay.
So I'd recommend that with subtitles.
Okay. All right. Well,
but I'm totally with you. Superb game. I'm going to play it again at some point.
Okay, next one is Halo 3. I am as I probably said on the last episode, I'm a bit of an Xbox fanboy, and wrapped up in that is Halo. Master Chief, for me, he's one of those iconic characters that whenever I see him on screen, I'm excited, I'm all over. And by that, Mark, I mean all over. And Halo 3 was a huge moment for me and my friends, basically, because we spent an entire summer not leaving our own respective houses and just building various game types and going on Forge and editing things and just making our own games that we could sit and play with each other. Like I can remember we spent hours on Sand Trap making a zombie game that was still one of the greatest games I've ever played, and we made it ourselves. But it was just so much fun. And I think Halo 3 multiplayer was the best that the series has had.
Agree. Shout
out to 2 as well, because it was the first big Xbox Live multiplayer game that Microsoft had done. But yeah, Halo 3, it just had, and it's something that Bungie does really well. They do it well with Destiny. You never feel like they're taking themselves too seriously, yet the gameplay is just so well done and so fun.
Yeah, I love that game. I remember playing, obviously, the online and stuff, but I did a lot of co-oping on Legendary. I think it's the only game on 360 that I 100%ed with all the achievements. I remember me and my mate just randomly squadded up with some older guy that we didn't know and got all the skulls and did all that.
The skulls,
it was just amazing. What a game.
Yeah. Excellent game. Can't say enough good things about it. Next one is probably another slightly predictable one for gamers out there. And I had a bit of debate with myself about which one I'd include, but it's kind of an obvious choice in the end, and it's Final Fantasy VII.
Ooh, okay.
And don't really need to say a lot about this game just because it is so widely loved, but it's just some of my earliest kind of big gaming memories really evolve around that game, and going and trying it at various friends' houses and dipping my toe into it and seeing the battles and the materia system and all that kind of stuff, and being like, I need to get this game. I actually got it on PC first. I think it was back in about 1997. And me and my brother broke the second disc. So we only ever played the first disc, but we just played the first disc over and over again. So I got to know Midgar, or Midjar, however you want to say it. I got to know it pretty well. But yeah, I think the characters, the story, the materia system, I just love so much about it. The music. So I would say the music in Final Fantasy VII and in some of the Zelda games are my favorite music in games. And even the intro theme for Final Fantasy VII makes me cry a little tear. The prelude, I believe it's called.
So with you.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 7, big one.
Mate, another reason to get a PS5.
Well,
Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Episode 1, and then Episode 2, whatever they're calling it.
So, I've been quite sad about not being able to play that.
You're just going to have to do it, aren't you? I think that's decided.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first.
So what have I got left? I think I've got 2 left out of my top 10. So next up, we'll go with Mass Effect 2.
Ooh, specific.
Yes. So we started off the episode talking a little bit about the Mass Effect trilogy coming up. I absolutely love the Mass Effect trilogy, hugely. I think the first game did so much and was hugely innovative. The script, the way it's written, the dialogue is just brilliant. I love the setting. But I just think the second one just took all of that and just made it better. And the gameplay, the shooting mechanics, everything about it, I think they just developed a little bit more. And it didn't have the stupid story problems that the third one had. So I think just, 2. And specifically things like at the ending of the game, depending on your decisions, members of your team, your squad, or your crew that you've kind of amassed over this game and the previous ones, they would just die in that final mission, and they were just gone, and entirely based on things you had done. And it was really the first game that I played, apart from the original Deus Ex on the PC, which was really ahead of its time in terms of that kind of decisions affecting
also a great game.
The story. It just really hits you hard when you've been playing a whole game with this crew, and you make this decision that it's a really difficult decision, and that's it, they're gone. And throughout the trilogy, those decisions did carry on, and that's something that BioWare does quite a lot, but your decisions carry on between the games.
Well, another thing I would add, you were saying about the dialogue and everything being great. I also really enjoyed the fact that it was slightly self-aware. It didn't take itself too seriously. There was some, it's sort of intentionally dodgy dancing or dodgy smiles, and all the sort of
the steamy
moments.
The shower scenes are pretty steamy. I seem to remember.
So they really hit a nice balance.
They did.
Great
I love
game.
it. Very, very silly, and especially because Shepard is someone who seems to take himself incredibly seriously, and then
he's such a goon though. But it's great.
You put him in those situations. Yeah, brilliant. Love Mass Effect. Got a lot of time for it.
So you've sort of come to your final one here, and kind of this is your favourite game, is it? Because we said no particular order, but you've toted this one as your big favourite, your big boy.
Well, maybe I've already said my favourite after what you said.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. This next one is my favourite. And I hate being absolutely basic, but again, it's a really, really obvious one. But this game genuinely does mean a lot to me.
Can I have a couple guesses?
Yeah.
Is it Ocarina of Time?
Yeah, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a huge sucker for the Zelda franchise. I could have put more Zelda games in my top 10 quite easily. But again, I don't know if it's the age I was that I've played it, but this game has the highest nostalgia levels for me. Close to how I feel about Star Wars, I would say. It is how much this game means to me, and it's because of so many things. It's the look of it. It's what we were talking about before. The kind of elemental based temples you get. It's just so easy to conjure up really vivid images throughout that game. But it's also the music and how the music was like woven into not only the story but the gameplay, playing the ocarina. And they had done it a few times in other Zelda games. I think in Link's Awakening, he has an ocarina as well. But in Ocarina of Time, seeing it there in 3D and just seeing Link just get out his ocarina and start kind of swaying as he plays it, it was just absolutely beautiful. And those tunes have never, ever left my brain.
I'd say Ocarina of Time probably has the most emotion-stirring sound effects in music of any game of our generation.
Yeah, and there's probably people younger than us that would say a game from the 2000s might do a similar thing to them. But I think, anyone who is our age and is a gamer, I don't really think could argue with that. I mean, I would say Final Fantasy VII definitely has a lot of similar things, but because of the reasons I said, in the way that it's interwoven into the gameplay, the music just makes me so emotional, and also just like huge things like having Link time travel, like put his sword into a stone and go through time. Just really innovative as well.
Puberty hits him hard and fast.
So hard. It makes him skip forward a few years. It's just great, man. I love that game.
I love it too. The only thing that really stopped me from replaying it these days is the water temple. I just can't be bothered. I genuinely can't be bothered.
I hear what you're saying, man. It's really hard.
It's a
but Ocarina of Time, my favorite game of all time.
Hey, listen. Here's my top 10. That was my segue to my top 10.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start with going over a couple that were on my list and also your list.
Okay.
Breath of the Wild. We've sort of covered it. Amazing game.
Big one.
Yeah, big one. Don't need to say much more, I don't think. I've also put Mass Effect, but I've cheated. I've cheated more than once on this list. 3 times I've cheated.
Oh, no.
And I've put the trilogy.
I won't stand for that, mate, I'm afraid.
It's happened, I'm afraid.
I want you to choose one.
Okay, if I was to choose one, here's the problem.
Okay.
If you'd asked me what my favourite was back in the Xbox 360 days, I would have said 2.
Yeah.
I replayed the trilogy not that long ago. And do you know which one came out best?
You're going to say 3, aren't you?
I'm going to say 1.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say 1. It's got a lot of charm.
Tell me why.
It's got a lot of charm. The story elements are probably at its most sort of intriguing and interesting.
I hear that.
The Mako vehicle sections are awful.
That is partly why I couldn't choose that game, or the elevator rides.
All the elevator rides, yeah, granted, and also all the different types of ammo. It's very clunky, but playing it back, I just thought it was the most charming and the most well constructed story-wise.
I hear that.
The problem with 3 is it's probably got the best gameplay of all 3 games. It's the most solid in terms of abilities and the way the weapons feel and the actual third-person shooting elements. It's definitely the best. But of course, they just didn't follow up on a lot of plot threads, and the ending is bizarre.
Yeah.
So if you pushed me now to pick one of the 3, it's going to be 1 or 2, but I think it's 1, you know.
I'm more than happy with that as an answer. I mean, it's not up to me. It is up to you, but also I allow it.
Thank you very much. Anyway,
that's right.
So those are the 2 crossover. I thought we'd have a couple more, but I was wrong. So I'm going in a random order because I don't have a big favourite of all time. I couldn't do it to myself. So we're going to hop down to the PS2.
Ooh.
And I'm going with, I can't wait to see your reaction to this, Spider-Man 2.
I mean, yeah, loved it. Really, really good game. Really liked it. And that's interesting because obviously you haven't played the new one, Spider-Man 2018. And a lot of people are saying that that's the best Spider-Man game of all time. But obviously you haven't played it.
I haven't played it, but I'll tell you why it isn't.
Okay.
Double trigger web spinning.
Enough said. Okay, next game.
Enough said. I'm sorry. But that is a big thing.
Yeah.
Having independent control of your left and right hand, the entirety of New York to swing around. Yeah. It was a teenage dream for me. Just incredible. The game was the game was cheesy as heck. There was a weird voiceover guy. The graphics look dated now, but just what a game. Just what a game. And it introduced a load of other villains as well, like Mysterio and just what a game. Rhino was in it. Shocker was in it.
It was brilliant. I just can't get over you saying that was a teenage dream. Most boys had Rachel from S Club and you were thinking about double trigger web slinging. That's just one of my favourite things you've ever said. Yeah, it's an excellent game. And yeah, I absolutely loved it.
We're sticking with the PS2 for Prince of Persia: Sands of Time.
Ooh.
Which gameplay-wise still holds up today. Just excellent combat, really good puzzles, really good story, great characters. Have nothing but good things to say about Sands of Time. The other 2, Warrior Within and Two Thrones, went in a slightly different direction. They're great games, but Sands of Time, just loved it. Even the sort of Ewan McGregor voiceover guy, it wasn't Ewan McGregor, but it sounded like it.
I'm going to shock you here.
Yeah,
I've never played any of the Prince of Persia games other than the ones way back in roughly 1992.
The 2D ones.
The 2D on the well, it wasn't the Amstrad, but it was something like that. It was an old school PC floppy disk based computer. That's the only Prince of Persia that I've ever played.
Okay, well, I mean, there is a HD remaster. I've got it on PS3.
Why isn't that on Switch?
Well, it could be. They should.
People would
Let's
lap that
put
up.
an appeal out. Let's put an appeal out on Twitter. But it's great. I love the trilogy, but Sands of Time has a special place.
It's quite a highly lauded game, actually. That I think I've heard a lot of podcasts where people really, really rate specifically that game. So I don't think you're alone in that.
Yeah, great game. Now here's one I thought we would have a crossover.
Yeah,
and I was wrong. But I suppose it's a very recent game for you, The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. So I played this across the period of Christmas 2018 or 19. 2018, I think, Christmas, and basically did the entire thing, including all the side quests and the DLC, but not the Gwent, over 2 weeks. And I mean, I was emotionally crippled.
Okay. I mean,
I was emotionally just laid out to dry by the time I was done.
I mean, you missed out.
What a game.
You missed out by not playing the Gwent, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, fair enough. I was so focused on doing everything else that I sort of, I'm not hugely into card games anyway, so I didn't want to, there was over 130 hours or whatever it was doing all that business.
Yeah,
so
I
didn't need a card game on the side.
Yeah.
But I hear good things about Gwent, and maybe one day I'll go back and do that.
I mean, it's almost as good as the card game in Final Fantasy VIII.
Right, okay. I think there's card games in all of them.
Yeah, most of them. I think it's an absolutely excellent game, Witcher. I don't know if I just came to it because I really, really recently completed it. I don't know if I came to it just slightly late, and if I played it at the same time as everyone else, maybe I would have been caught up more in the hype. But yeah, I did really, really, really like it. I think maybe the combat just didn't quite click for me.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But absolutely love the game. Excellent story. Why did it hit you in the feels so much? Obviously, there's some sad stuff going on, but I want to know more.
I think it was just because I'd played it in such a short, dense amount of time and really packed it in. So I was very much into it. It's not like I was spreading it out and sort of, taking it in bit by bit. So I was very invested in it at the time. But yeah, there's 3 endings of the main story arc, all of which have a sad element. But the middle one is the one I got. And it's just, I don't know, I think I was just invested at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I think it just really hit me and I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh.
Yeah. I think I got the nice ending, so I didn't get the feels. Okay. I was all happy at the end.
But I loved it. I loved all the characters and the side questing and the dialogue was great. I really enjoyed it. Great.
I agree.
Next up is a PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy, but not the same as yours.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
You're going to say 9, aren't you?
I am going to say 9.
Yeah.
The thing is that it was the second one I played. I did play 7 first, but I don't know what it was about 9, because, all the music's great and all that sort of thing hits you in all the right spots. I think it was because it was a hark back to the original 2D vibes. There were elements of it that were, in terms of gameplay and like learning abilities and things that felt more based in the sort of the older way of doing things, which I really liked. And the sort of black mage, white mage thing with VV looking exactly like the little sprites back in the day and that sort of thing. A lot of people at the time didn't like the weird sort of medieval art style, but it just didn't bother me at all. I would say the characters themselves, minus VV perhaps, are less iconic than 7, but I just loved it. I thought it was just a great adventure, great game. Great story. I understand why people prefer 7. I don't think it's just because it was the first 3D one, but I can't wait to, at some point, play the remake of 7 and see what I think then.
Yeah, I sadly 9 is one that slipped under my radar a little bit. I have played a decent amount of it. I think I just prefer the Final Fantasy games that aren't set in sort of traditional fantasy, like you said, I suppose, like medieval fantasy. I prefer the sort of more modern settings of the Final Fantasy games.
Sure.
That's just I don't know, it's quite a shallow way of looking at it, but yeah, I don't know, something about it. I think it was that sort of over dramatic vibe that it had of that, the sort of knights and wizards and all that stuff. I just didn't really click with me as much.
in terms of listing the Final Fantasies, it's definitely 9, then 10, then 7.
See, mine's 7, then 10, then 8.
But each to his own.
Yeah.
There seems to be very much a split between people that have 10 as their favourite, people that have 7 as their favourite, and then a cult following of 9.
Yeah.
And I'm very much in that cult following that just think 9 is the greatest.
Okay. I hear you.
But that's just me. And then there's weirdos that like 8, which is the worst. Moving on. So we're actually making a weird side jump to PC, but I did also have this game on PS3, and it's Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Oh, that was a weird side jump.
I played this at a friend's house on his PC and was blown away that graphics could look like this.
Yeah.
Very much ahead of its time. You can play this game now and it still looks good, apart from the character models, which are slightly hilarious.
Yeah, they really are. Oh man, they're funny.
It was my first experience of an RPG that was very much open world, and you just kind of make your character and you do the sort of introduction, getting out of jail with the Emperor and everything, and then it just goes, off you go.
Yeah.
And just the world and the forests and the foliage and the people you meet along the way and like all the skills and doing up your character and the different armor sets and things. I was off with the fairies playing that game. Just wonderful, and everything being voice acted as well. What a stunning game!
Is it?
I could play it again.
Is it your favourite Bethesda Studios game?
It is, yeah. With the second being Fallout 3.
Yeah. So let's not dedicate time in this episode to talk about your hot take on Skyrim. We'll leave that for another time.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, no, my first entry into the Elder Scrolls universe was Skyrim, so I never actually played Oblivion. But yeah, if it did anything that Skyrim did for you, that Skyrim did for me, that was a weird way of saying that, then I can understand why you enjoyed it so much. I flipping love Skyrim.
Yeah, I played Oblivion around a mate's house on PC. I then got it on PlayStation 3 and played it again, and then I got it on PC and played it again.
Wow.
And what a game. Sticking with PC, because that's where I played these two games, it's Dark Souls 1 and 3. I'm afraid it's another cheat.
You're rubbish at this, man. Especially that, because you're not even saying the trilogy. You're just missing one out.
Well, yeah, 2's trash and no one recognises it as a real Dark Souls.
Then pick 1 or 3!
If you pushed me, I'd say 3.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But I just adore Dark Souls 1 and 3. I mean, it's one of those games where a lot of people would obviously go in, get killed, and go, what's the point in this? It's too difficult.
I mean, that literally happened to me. I started that game probably twice because I remember back in the 360 days, they gave it away as a Games with Gold game. And I was like, okay. I've heard a lot of hype about this. And I started playing it and I was like, well, this game is clearly broken and impossible. Why the hell would I waste any time on this? And it was only when I later revisited, because you came round to our house and you were like, whoa, you've got Dark Souls. Why aren't you playing this? And then you sat down and showed me the complex system of wizardry you have to kind of utilize to make that game work and understand it. Then I started enjoying it. And I actually got onto my honourable mentions, which I didn't mention before. Dark Souls 1 did, because I've played 1 on 2, and 1 is brilliant. But sorry, I'm standing on your toes here. Tell me more about tell me more about why you love Dark Souls, please.
What I really love about Dark Souls is that the game can be as deep or superficial as you like, depending on your preference and the sort of time available to you. On the surface, it's obviously a really difficult, like, explorative action game with really fairly deep combat. But what I really love is how looming and fantastical the backdrop is. And if you dig deeper, every single NPC has a really deep, sad backstory. No one's backstory or arc ends well. And the whole world is just full with this sort of despair that's just through the entire game. And like, to really understand all the lore and the way it weaves together, you probably have to go on YouTube and watch some people that really deep dive into it. But the stuff you can grab from just playing in a game and working it out yourself or going on YouTube is just stunning amount of work. I just loved it. I mean, Dark Souls 1 definitely has the best level design. It's incredible the way everything links up.
Yeah, it's so clever.
As you go round. And that's just insane. Dark Souls 3, slightly less so, but it's still great. But it's the same thing that I've just said in Dark Souls 3 as well, with the story and the backstories and the combat. It's love it.
It is one of the hardest. Well, I'm talking about one here. One of the hardest games I've ever played. But the sense of reward that game gives you when it comes up saying victory achieved is second to none. And on top of what you were saying about how it can, it's on the surface, you can play it, you can just go through the game and not really experience a whole lot of story. You can just kind of go through it, and you only get spoon fed a few cutscenes here and then. It's really odd that there is enjoyment to be had having to find a story in the game. That's just not something that ever happens outside of those games, really. That I would normally use that as a huge piece of criticism, saying that, the game doesn't really have a story or anything like that. But the fact that you have to go and dig for the story yourself is just another element, another way to find that kind of pleasure and sense of being rewarded, because you go out and find it yourself. And I think that's such a novel aspect to those games.
Yeah, and it runs so deep as well. I mean, the amount of deep diving that people have done to try and work minutiae out is incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just great.
And praise the sun, baby.
Praise the sun. Anyway, moving on, we're going back to the PlayStation 1. I think this is the only game. No, it's the second game from PlayStation 1 era. I say game. I've cheated again. It's Crash 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, you're all about your flipping trilogies.
This one nearly didn't make it at the list, but I sort of found myself putting it there anyway, because it was Crash Bandicoot 1 was my first ever game.
Really?
That I played at home on the PlayStation 1 when we got it. There are many reasons that I love this game, apart from that nostalgia element, including the development of it. There's a reason that game still looks good, and I'm not talking about the Insane Trilogy remake, which is also superb. Basically, long story short, the developers were geniuses, knew about there was something within the PlayStation that was blocking some of the bandwidth because it had its own assets and things. Right. They knew about this and were looking how to bypass it. No words were spoken, but someone at Sony slipped them a piece of paper, and that was all that was said.
What is this? What's going on? This
go look it up.
This conspiracy theories going on here about PlayStation and Naughty Dog.
Go look up the history of Crash Bandicoot 1.
Wow.
But basically, it meant that they had higher bandwidth available to them. And they dedicated like a huge percentage of the game only to Crash's animations. But if you go look at something like Tomb Raider and try and play that game, it looks like a big grey block.
Terrible,
and it's awful. Yeah. It looks shocking. Crash still looks good. The backgrounds look incredible. His animations are just superb. It's just awesome. It's just such an interesting history to it. But yeah, Crash 1, 2, and 3. Back in the day, I would have said my favourites were 2, 3, 1. When I replayed the Insane Trilogy, it went 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Don't know why that is. Yeah. Love the character, love the gameplay.
Okay. I don't really like the games, but I won't. I don't want to rain on your parade.
That's all right. I hate Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. So we're going back to PC again for the last one in my list, in no particular order, and it's Portal.
Portal
1.
Portal. Excellent game. Oh, yes!
I play this like bi-yearly, probably. Yeah. And I never remember the puzzles apart from maybe a couple, which is one reason I like it. I think it was the first game to do this kind of puzzling.
I would say so, yeah.
And I just loved it. I loved and the robot GLaDOS and all that stuff, and the song at the end, and all the memes that come up from the cake is a lie. Well, I don't really need to say anything, do I? It's Portal.
Portal. Yeah,
it's Portal.
Excellent game, really funny. Second one was also brilliant and very, very funny. Great games, iconic. Well done.
We're very quickly just going to go over honourable mentions. This is not going to be a long segment. Okay. This is just stuff that was close but didn't quite make it. So I'll go through mine and then we'll go through yours. So honourable mentions for me: Halo 3.
Nice.
For all the reasons we talked about before, stunning. The GTA 5 single player. I just thought it was I just loved all the character switching and how they interwove, and
brilliant.
The game just looked amazing for its time, and it was the first GTA that I felt was accessible on a story level, because it wasn't just you kind of had the three elements in the three characters, rather than just being like a gangster and going and popping someone in the ass.
Yeah.
Another one, Fable 1.
Oh, Fable.
This one is the reason this one didn't make it is because I didn't think it was actually good enough. But B, the memory is tarred of Fable 2 and 3 being truly awful and ruining the memory.
Really? So I
Fable.
I don't know. Well, maybe I just tried it and didn't like it that much. But people seem to like Fable 2 from what I know.
Yeah, it has a lot of defense. I'd have to play it again to be honest with you, and sort of reassess. But I remember at the time just being like, "What is this?"
Didn't click with you.
Didn't click with me. But yeah, Fable 1, just loved. It was a mixture of the art style and the world and the magic, and it really had a sense of magic behind it that was really special at the time. Super Smash Brothers.
Ooh.
I've put Melee and Brawl.
Okay.
Just the amount of time spent on those two games. I think Brawl is the most underappreciated of all the Super Smash Brothers. I think obviously the current one, Ultimate, is probably the best one in many respects. But Brawl was just a superb game, and obviously Melee is a classic.
Yeah, I agree with them. I played them so much with my friends, those two games.
So so it's in my honorable mentions just because I feel it has to be.
I'm up for that.
PlayStation 1 again, Wipeout 2097, and Wipeout 3.
Oh, Wipeouts. I have never played a Wipeout game because I'm not much of a PlayStation boy. So talk to me.
Well, I mean, it really made your imagination go. The future of racing, these sort of hovercraft style ships that are racing across tracks, and loop-de-loops and all this sort of thing, and weapons. And I mean, it was Mario Kart for adults, really, is what it was. But also it instilled in me a love of that sort of electronica and house. And my uncle would come over and bring his PlayStation and another television, and we'd link the two PlayStation together and play multiplayer that way.
Oh, wow.
With the hi-fi blasting.
Oh, man.
This is back in the day of hi-fi.
Every episode we've done so far, I'm just growing to love your uncle even more. He just sounds like the best guy.
But it was just great times had on those three games. We really enjoyed it.
Okay, great.
BioShock, we've mentioned.
We've got it in there, yeah.
What a great game. And finally, Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, another game I haven't played. I've just missed a lot of PlayStation games over my life, but I know I would really like it. And it had a remaster recently that was thought of very fondly, I seem to know.
Yeah, again, if I get a PS5 and it's backwards compatible and I can buy it, I'll play the remaster.
Yeah.
But I just have these incredible memories of the open world and the weird language and the mists, and then seeing the Colossus
Huge
for the first time,
bosses,
and trying to work out how you climb it and where to take it out. What a game.
Yeah,
and that's it.
From what I've seen in Shadow of the Colossus, I love the look of it. Am I right in thinking it doesn't have any kind of like UI or HUD or anything? Or does it?
No.
Yeah, it just looks so immersive, and I like the look of that. Okay, my honourable mentions, Dark Souls, you mentioned it. Dark Souls 1 for me, absolutely love it. Nearly killed myself playing it, but love the hell out of that game. Next up, Half-Life 2. Was just a really big game for me, mainly because I remember just going through various iterations of trying to build a PC that was powerful enough to play it at the time, and it was really one of those games where so many people were building PCs just to be able to play it. Yeah, I just absolutely love that game, and the story of it, and the kind of the sense of awe that you get when you step into City 17 for the first time. Absolutely love that game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's
good.
Just loved it. Just
good.
Loved it. Everything about like the soundtracks of those games, just excellent. Just really like skateboarding games. Next, Perfect Dark. We mentioned it earlier for the N64.
Mm-hmm. I didn't like it.
Did you not? Oh,
no, not really.
Couldn't get into
it.
Again, the single player was great, but for me, it was the multiplayer in that. Me and my brother spent so much time playing it. And finally, Burnout 3 Takedown.
What a game.
Yeah, just love
the first three.
Yeah, smashing up cars is just hilarious and great. Really, really fun game. And I also remember having that on my original Xbox, and you being able to put you could put your music onto the game, so you could like play.
Okay.
So I
I
uploaded a load of CDs onto my Xbox, and then you could kind of make a playlist to listen to while you play the game, and that was just the best, man. Listening to like some heavy metal while smashing up cars. What's better than that? But yeah, that's my honourable mentions, and those are some of our favourite games.
Absolutely, and please email in with your favourite games so we can get to know you a little bit and trash talk you, and you trash talk us back, etc. What's that email again, Bella?
We're gonna tear you apart. It's pushingbuttonspod@gmail.com. Please get in touch.
And that's going to be it from us today. What are we talking about next week?
Yeah, next week. So obviously there's no E3 going on at the moment because of your boy COVID. But there are lots of presentations and events going on. So we'll talk a little bit more about them in the news. But we're mainly going to be talking about the console war and the past, present, and future of it. Should it exist? Who knows? But it's happening, and maybe take a look at, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and how Microsoft are going to come back at Sony after their excellent conference last week.
The ball is indeed in their court. I'm looking forward to that. Got to say,
they've got the ball and they need to play with it.
Well, that's it from us. Thank you for listening to Pushing Buttons this week, and we'll join you at some stage next week with all of that.
Yes, thanks for listening, guys. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Right, I thought you were going to talk about my name's Commander Shepard. This is my favourite store on the Citadel. Whoops. My favourite store on the Citadel.
But no matter what scars you bear, whatever uniform you wear, you can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you'll never be better than Commander Shepard.